Never sell your corns. Never sell your bitcoins. Isn't that the saying that you hear all around the crypto sphere, or at least in the Bitcoin sphere? And this is a statement that I used to really not understand. I was like, well, why would you never sell your corns if the point is to make money? And you need you need to sell it in order to put it into some form that will allow you to actually pull out some cash and use that for whatever you desire to use it for. And in this video, I want to go over a subject that I've been studying now for about half of a year, that I first initially learned about maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. I heard it. It didn't really make sense at the time, but there is actually literally a way to not sell your corns, not sell your bitcoins, but still get cash, still get unlimited amounts of cash. No, there is a limit, of course, to it, but this is with Bitcoin-backed loans. Now, there are several companies nowadays that have come up recently that allow you to effectively use your Bitcoin as collateral to secure a loan. So that means that they give you loans in the form of cash, or it could be probably USDT as well, or whatever stablecoin you want to guess. And you get to hold your bitcoins. You don't actually have to sell your bitcoins. And I'm going to go through the process and exactly how to do it step by step in this video. It's going to sound really, really crazy at first, and it really actually took me, months to wrap my mind around how to actually play this out and what it actually means. But there are several things that are massively advantageous about using this process to essentially unlock your cash. And we'll start with a nice little overview of what we'll be going over in this next slide here. We'll go over the pain of selling, how asset-backed loans work. So you can apply this not just to Bitcoins, but you could also use it for, securing a loan against your stock holdings, for example. We'll also go over tax and investment upside. This is really where the magic comes in, to be honest. Key metrics that you need to learn in order to understand how to analysize whatever loan you might be given. And then a step-by-step demo of how to do it, and then just avoiding the risk landmines, because that was my big issue with this at first. Like, why the fuck would I take out a loan, introduce extra risk, and for what, then I will have to probably sell my bitcoins at some point, right? Anyways, this is one of the few times where I will humbly say that, hey, if you find this content valuable, or if you want to get more content like this instead of the, usual Bitcoin price analysis, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video as well with someone else who might be, who just might not have this sort of financial education, because I plan on doing more videos like this as I learn more and as I, find these, what I think is really, really cool things. So there you go. And of course, if that doesn't sound good to you, then don't do that. All right. So let's first go over the issue. The pain of selling. Now, selling does many things, not just, relieving you of the controllership of your corns, but when you sell, you trigger a taxable event, which can be up to 37% tax in the US. And this is going to be focused, by the way, on US people. Now, you can apply about the same framework to, most other Western countries. I'm sure the numbers will change here and there, but this is specifically for the US. And by the way, I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not a tax advisor or anything like this. I'm just sharing shit that I've learned, and you can do with that as you please. Anyways, yes, okay, so you incur taxes, you lose your corns, and you have no more Bitcoin exposure. So if Bitcoin goes up after you sell, you don't get to participate in none of that because you sold. Like you got cash now, which probably didn't move, or maybe inflated, so you lost a little bit of value at least. And then of course you lose that future upside potential, because if you do want to get your coins back, you got to buy in higher, potentially, assuming that it does go up, which generally over time it does. And it separates you from your coins, which are increasingly harder to get, being that they are in limited supply and quite high demand, it seems like, and will likely cost more in the future to obtain the same nominal value that you had before. One Bitcoin today is probably going to cost more in 4 to 5 years from now, at least, maybe even in the next year. However, I would say, over a longer period of time, naturally, we have seen it just generally go up. So in other words, selling incurs significant costs upfront and separates you from future gains. So that is the opportunity cost here. So what if we could avoid this event? And I have a nice little example right here. Let's say last year, as it's being recorded in 2025, but let's say last year during the summer you sold during this region here, you needed to pay whatever, some fucking legal fees or rent, or you wanted to buy a house, whatever it might be. You sell right here at about $50,000. Bitcoin, months later goes up 50%, and you miss out on all of that upside. And well, you got your cash, but now you have cash plus a tax obligation, a quite large, potentially a quite large tax obligation, and you miss out on that extra 50% upside. So that is very, very, very painful. I'm sure anyone who has done anything relatively similar can attest to that fact. Anyways, moving on, and I recognize that my camera is in the way of a little bit of this, but I promise I'll read it to you. The solution here is asset-backed loans. This is what I've been learning in the past and what I've been studying. I mean, you could even say it's for multiple years, but really intensely in the past 6 months, I'd say. And so here's how it works. You post Bitcoin or any asset, like I said, as collateral. Now, there are several lending platforms. Hopefully I can get some sort of an affiliateship with one of them, because this is something that, I like using, but there's plenty now for Bitcoin. And of course, many more if you want to do this with, your assets like stocks, commodities, these sorts of things. You'll be able to get even bigger loans, actually. And so the process, anyways, getting back to it, first you post your Bitcoin. So that means you essentially give your Bitcoin to the lender as collateral, because they need something to hold on to in the event that you renege on your obligations to pay your interest. And then you borrow dollars, or it could be stable coins, but we're going to use dollars in this example, at about 50% loan to value. We'll explain what that means a little bit later on, or maybe we could just go over a quick example here. Loan to value just means that the amount that you are putting up for collateral versus the amount of dollar liquidity that you are getting. So if you put up one Bitcoin, which costs, let's say, $100,000, and you are getting a 50% LTV, then you take 50% of the value of that $100,000 asset. So you have $50,000 USD loan. And then you keep your exposure to Bitcoin. So that Bitcoin is still yours, even though you have posted it as collateral. It's still yours. It's going to come back to you at the end of the loan, assuming that you maintain your obligations. And that means that you have no tax liability. You didn't sell. The U.S. tax code is set up exactly to do it this way. This is not like a secret, or I mean, it is kind of a secret, but it's not like a scam. It's not like a fucking gray area or anything like this. No, it's quite literally set up in this way so that people can do it like this, because that is exactly how the U.S. system, the U.S. tax system is designed. You're not supposed to hold your fucking funds in dollars. You're supposed to hold it in assets and then access dollar liquidity. And in this way, you actually don't even pay taxes when you do that, which is fucking insane. I understand, but that is how most rich people do it, or most rich people who have even a modicum of financial education or access to people like financial advisors who do have a financial education. Anyways, just to reiterate, when taking a loan, no sale of your asset, in this case Bitcoin, takes place. Therefore, no taxable event. And you get to hold your coins, meaning that if it goes up, your collateral value also goes up. So your loan to value goes down, which is good. It means you have less of a you're less likely to get liquidated. No, you can't get liquidated, if it goes down, obviously. Anyways, I quote the IRS publications here. If you really want to read them through, I'll just briefly do it. IRS publication 525 in 2024, taxable and non-taxable income, Chapter 1, Section Loans. You don't include the proceeds of a loan in your income because you're obligated to repay it. Yes. And yeah, so you do have to repay it. So don't, that is the catch. You still got to repay it, right? You can't just take out a loan and then be like, fuck it. I won't do that. I don't know about that repaying bullshit. And then also IRS Internal Revenue Manual 5.15.1.31. Real estate, paragraph 4 to 5, confirms reverse mortgage proceeds, loan advances, are not taxable. These citations reassure viewers that the tax deferral isn't some crypto loophole. It's the standard IRS position on borrowed money. So this, again, applies to other assets. You could do it with real estate. You can do it with stocks. You can do it with commodities, these sorts of things. And then we have a nice little infographic here as to, hey, you bastard, I didn't mean to do that. A nice little infographic here on how that flow goes. Okay, into the next one. All right. Tax advantage deep dive. So now let's talk about the boring but very sexy topic of taxes. I fucking love it, man. Oh, I love it. I really do. I should have become an accountant. Anyways, I really should have, honestly. I actually do like learning about this stuff. So loan proceeds, again, do not equal income. These are not the same things. There's no capital gains recognition when you do this. There's no taxable event at all whatsoever for specifically accessing liquidity from that Bitcoin. Interest may even be deductible if funds are used for investment or business purposes. I quote the IRS publication 535 caveat. So that means that if you were to take that dollar liquidity that you got from securing a Bitcoin-backed loan, you could turn around and go invest in more Bitcoin as a business activity, or you could go buy real estate, or you could go buy stocks. Again, assuming that that's a business activity, or just add something to your business. If you do something like that, then those interest payments are now tax deductible. It's actually lessening your tax burden. Isn't that fucking crazy? At least it is to me. Anyways, the basis in Bitcoin remains intact. Thus, any future price appreciations of Bitcoin increase your net worth. Again, consult your CPA or whatever professional that you consult with. But the rules do differ if proceeds fund personal consumptions, cover the wash sale risk. Yes, that can, you can't just wash sale and harvest things that way. But yeah, just keep in mind that fact. Anyways, moving on, let's go into the next slide. The investment advantage. So again, as an investment, you get to hold your Bitcoin. So Bitcoin price appreciates, that contributes towards your overall net worth. You could actually even refinance your loan. We'll go through what that means later. But the potential positive carry, Bitcoin appreciation, is greater than interest. So let's say you have an interest rate on your Bitcoin-backed loan at 10%. So that means that 10% in a year, you are paying that. But Bitcoin is appreciating at, people quote, 30% a year. I want to do another video on this because, well, yes, right now the average CAGR is 30%. I extremely do not believe that is going to last for a very long time. It will go down almost undoubtedly. Anyways, just in this example, or if you want to take the example of stocks, like let's say you get a 5% interest loan, so that's your loan cost, and your stock and your stocks start going up more than 5%. Well, guess what? You just got that. You can pay off the interest with the appreciation of your asset and still have some left over, maybe even making some as well. Again, if that number is greater. And then you have flexibility. You can repay early, of course. You can redeploy capital. You can do all sorts of crazy things. Again, we'll go over some of these strategies later. But basically, buy the asset and hold. Do not kill the golden goose laying the golden eggs. This is actually one of the things that my father said, like in a completely different context many years ago, but it really stuck with me. When you have a golden goose, when you have an asset that is producing gains for you, in this case, Bitcoin, we don't want to fucking sell that if we don't have to. And the beautiful thing is we don't have to. So this is also, at least in my opinion, kind of the issue with, if you would, for all the people who really, for some reason, hate fiat currencies, which I get, inflation, all this sort of stuff, I think it's really just a misunderstanding of how the financial system works. And if we did have a pure financial system that was just Bitcoin and nothing else, or just, whatever and nothing else, then you wouldn't be able to do shit like this. And this is obviously massively advantageous and probably promotes a lot of the growth in the economy. So it really comes down to a lack of a financial education. Now, they'd probably say that about me saying that, but that's just what I believe as of this moment. Anyways, key metrics 101, don't get wrecked. How about that? Yeah, so we'll go through the main nomenclatures and just acronyms that you'll need to know when considering doing something like this. And first, as we went over, loan to value, or LTV, in plain English, that's the slice of your collateral's pie you're borrowing. So we gave the example earlier, own 100,000 of Bitcoin, borrow 50,000 bucks in a loan. That means that your loan to value is 50%. Your loan is 50% of the value of your asset that you're putting up as collateral. Pick your LTV. So, of course, most lenders will let you pick the LTV value that you must maintain in order to not be liquidated. So, in the examples of these crypto lenders, I think the highest I've seen is about 50%. And that's probably considered a little bit risky. I know with stocks you can go higher than that, maybe 60 or 70%. But do be aware of the risk with that, because obviously if then Bitcoin price goes down, well, guess what? Which can happen. Obviously, we all know that Bitcoin is no stranger to 70% plus moves down every once in a while. But that means that your collateral value also goes down, meaning that your loan to value goes up. So, after a certain percentage, you will get liquidated by the lender in order for the lender to pay, make sure that they don't get fucked themselves. Anyways. Yes. So pick your LTV provider, caps it usually around 50%, but you decide how much to draw. So you could have a 50% loan to value, but maybe you only draw like $30,000 off of that $100,000 collateral that you posted with Bitcoin, for example. So yeah, obviously the lower the LTV, the safer it is, and the lower the interest that you will have as well. The higher LTV gives more cash, but raises liquidation risk and higher interest rates as well. So you'll pay more in order to access that liquidity. Loan to value, loan divided by collateral value. Again, that is how you get the value that's how you derive the value of LTV. And then the margin call, we need to go over this as well. This is very, very important. This is how you get liquidated if you don't understand this part. If Bitcoin dips 25%, then you must, if you took a 50% loan to value. So this is the example of just 50% loan to value. And Bitcoin dips about 25%. You must provide even more collateral. You have to post more collateral, assuming that you used Bitcoin as your collateral to begin with, or you face liquidation, meaning that they will forcibly sell at least a portion of your Bitcoin collateral in order to pay that obligation or maintain that obligation, I should say. So think of LTV like a home equity loan. No bank lets you borrow 100% of the house, obviously. Same with Bitcoin. A more risk-averse borrower will start at about 20 to 30% LTV. Sparring headgear is the example I give here. Level before they crank the leverage. Again, I'm citing Ledin, which is one of the lenders. You got Ledin, you got Strike, you got Unchained, and I'm sure that there's more coming along the way too. Users can choose any loan to value less than or equal to 50%. Again, that is actually going off of Unchained for that last stat. Moving on, when liquidation. Again, big focus on this. You need to know your risk. This is not riskless, obviously, and this is where you can get into a lot of trouble if you do it wrong. So when liquidation, well, 70% loan to value liquidation isn't a universal law. Each lender posts its own lines, but it's probably going to be somewhere around there. So usually on your dashboard for whatever provider that you went with, they'll, your loan to value will start to turn yellow is usually the color, and that indicates that you have a margin call. Now, a margin call is not just that funny meme that you see on Twitter where it's like the iPhone and then it's calling and then it's by margin. I mean, you will get called like that, yes, but it's a call for you to go and post more value, more assets, more Bitcoin, more whatever, more collateral in order for you to avoid liquidation. And then, going up from there, red is when you're near liquidation. Typically, not all of these things are the same, but that's typically the sort of flow here. Anyways, always read the agreement. I quote some of the agreement manuals for Ledin, Strike, and Unchained here, and keep a stablecoin buffer handy or some extra Bitcoins, on the side. If you use that as your collateral, just something extra. Make sure that you have a buffer because weird shit does happen every once in a while. Obviously, it's natural. Black swans do happen, and you have to always be ready for the possibility that your collateral might lose 30 to 50% value in a very, 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 very short amount of time, and be ready to actually post more because they usually don't give you that much time to post more. Maybe in some cases a few days, but obviously you don't want to find out. You don't want to fuck around and find that one out. But yeah. I quote some of the margin call and liquidation thresholds here for the popular Bitcoin-backed lenders. Ledin is going to be margin call. LTV is going to be 70%. Strike is going to be 75%. Unchained will be 80%, but they actually have a different system. It's not necessarily the same. And then at liquidation, that's for Ledin going to be 80%. For Strike going to be 85%. Unchained again 83%, but it is a different. They use a different metric there actually. Anyways. Okay, the other major term that I think people hear quite often is rehypothecation. So let's define rehypothecation. After you post the Bitcoin, that means that you give the Bitcoin to the lender. The custodian, also known as a lender, lends your coins out again to earn additional yield. If that downstream borrower defaults, think like a 3 arrows Celsius style issue, your collateral can go poof, even if you're current on interest. So think about that again. It can go poof even if your interest payments are on time and there's no issues there. Again, that is kind of the issue here. That can happen. That can happen again. We've all, if you've been around for even a few years now, you've seen crazy stuff happen in a very short period of time for Bitcoin. So at these, in these examples, you absolutely want to make sure that you are not maximizing, your leverage that you're taking out from these loans. The higher that you go, the more and more risk that you will incur. I personally would say no more than 30% if you want to be super safe, or if you are going to go 50%, make sure that you have a designated stockpile of extra collateral to post should you need it. But even then, the way that I think is, why would you even do that to begin with? Because, well, then you have a limited amount of time to post that collateral. If you do get margin call, it could be a real issue for you. Maybe something pops up and you're just not available to send it in that time. So just consider that example. I really do think, if you're going to do something like this, you'll want to go on the low end of this, around about 30%. So let's give it an example, $30,000 worth of loan at 30% LTV. So we're going with, again, $100,000 Bitcoin posted as collateral. And you're going to lock that $100,000 Bitcoin with some lender. Let's just say it's Strike. And then you draw $30,000. So you get $30,000 of liquidity in dollars. So that's going to be a 30% LTV, comfortably below that 50% cap. Very, very nice. So that gives us lots of breathing room here. The lender will rehypothecate your Bitcoins to a market maker for their own yield. So this is what most lenders typically do. I know that Strike actually does not rehypothecate your collateral, but most lenders will do this, especially more traditional ones that will do like stock-backed loans, these sorts of things. So there is risk in that because you've seen these sort of Celsius-style blow-ups, right? It's like, yeah, we'll give you a small amount interest. We'll pay you a small amount interest to take your for you to park your coins here, and we'll pay you back. But what they're doing is they're going out and they're taking even more risk by investing in something else. And obviously something can blow up over there too. Like I said, Strike, I believe, does not do this. At least that's what they state. I don't know about Ledin and I don't know about Unchained, to be honest. So yeah, if the market maker basically blows up and the lender can't reclaim the coins, you could be forced liquidation or haircut. So that is why I think Strike is probably the best option. Again, I don't know if Ledin does it, but if they don't do it, then they're probably a good one as well. Even if your LTV was conservative. So do consider that. Takeaway, the lower the rehypothecation risk, Strike and Unchained. Okay, so Strike and Unchained do not rehypothecate. Okay, I actually did do the research here. My bad. I completely forgot that point. Ledin does. So the safer your collateral would be. So at least you don't have that risk. All right, moving on. Yes, example setup. All right, collateral, we're going to use one Bitcoin. It's worth $100,000, and we want $40,000 USD. So that's a 40% LTV. We're going to use Ledin, so that's a 12-month term. So it's a year long, and we're going to have a 10.4% APR. So that's your interest rate. So sorry, just swallowing some organic orange juice from earlier. Anyways, amortized versus interest only. So an amortized schedule means every payment knocks down the principal and pays the interest, so the balance is zero at the end. In this case, with this example, you would be paying about $41.60 per month for 12 months at 10.4% APR. So that's your interest payments. The table above assumes interest only. So that's $347 a month with the entire $40,000 balloon due at maturity. So yes, different lenders do things different ways, and you can usually, a lot of the time, you usually even have the option as well, but you can choose a loan where you only pay the interest payments, and then at the very end of the term, so if it's a year-long loan, then at the very end of the year, then you pay back the principal. Or, like I said, there are other ones like amortized, which will combine it. So that means that you are paying both the interest and the principal. The principal is, the $100,000 of Bitcoin that that you just loaned out, or sorry, the $40,000 of USD that you got. So do keep that in mind as well. All right, moving on. Cash flow timeline. So 12-month example here. Again, we're going with a year-long loan. Day 0, you deposit your Bitcoins, you receive 40,000. Months 1 through 11, you pay interest for 347 a month, or you accrue if you go with the balloon option. And then by month 12, you repay the principal plus final interest, and then the Bitcoin gets released back to you. So you get your Bitcoin back, so you still got the Bitcoins. That was effectively 40,000, and you're done paying the interest as well, which was 347 a month. So again, I think I got a little bit ahead of myself here, but like I said, you can actually roll these things for infinity. So you can do an early payoff, but this, as we'll go, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but doing an early payoff is actually not so wise. Now, there will be situations where this is wise, but I would say in general, it's probably not so wise if you're really looking to do this to access liquidity, like often, let's say. So yeah, at Ledden, there is 0 prepayment penalty, but as we'll go over a little bit later, you probably don't want to do that anyways. Or at least there's a good reason and good situations where that's just not going to make much sense. So sensitivity analysis, your initial collateral value, 100,000 with, again, we posted 100,000 bucks of Bitcoin. We have accessed a $40,000 loan, 40% LTV. Scenario A, Bitcoin goes up 25%. So now our initial collateral is actually worth $125,000. So our LTV will actually drop in this case from 40% to 32%. So that means our equity buffer widens. So our CTP rises, no calls. Meaning that we don't have to worry about getting liquidated. We don't have to worry about these things. We can even pull out, another loan. In fact, in scenario B, if Bitcoin goes down 45%, now your $100,000 initial collateral is worth $55,000 of collateral. So your LTV soars all the way up to 73%, meaning that you get a margin call, meaning that you must post more collateral in order to bring that LTV down and be, in good standing. And if you fail to add that collateral, then the lender will liquidate you at 80% LTV with Bitcoin at 55,000, and your coins are basically sold to repay the loan plus fees. They just get rid of you right there. So again, equity going up, or basically Bitcoin going up, that just gives you a wider buffer. You can actually, refinance these things and pull out even more money on a loan on top of it. But that's really where you get into issues with, in my opinion, liquidation risks. Like you're just going to continue to leverage yourself. Yes, I'm sure some people do it successfully, but you definitely put a target on your back if and when you do that. Anyways, refinancing and perpetual roll. This is where I think it gets really, really cool, really, really interesting, at least for a fucking finance nerd like me at this point. So refinancing, this is one of the options that you have for your loan at the end of the term. In plain English, this is when you trade in your old loan for a brand new one, usually to snag a lower interest rate. You might even want to pull out some extra cash or reset the clock on repayments. These sort of things are what you can do. So basically, you get to hold on to that initial value and you just extend the term. You extend the term and maybe you get a lower interest rate. So maybe the interest rate goes from like 10 to 8. That means your interest payments go down by 2%, and you get to keep that, that dollar liquidity. But you're going to still have to, continue to do those monthly interest payments. Now, you can also do the perpetual interest only roll, which is where you keep the same loan alive by just paying the interest each year and then renewing the principal for another term. Which is pretty fucking crazy. It's like renewing season tickets for your favorite football team so you can keep attending and keep watching. It gives you a call option on that. So basically what you can do is, and here's also what you can do. Now, many lenders will let you do this like literally on their platform, but if not, you can do it through another lender. But you can take out a collateralized loan for 1 year. And let's say, again, it's the same example, you pull out $40,000 USD on a $100,000 Bitcoin loan. And then you're paying the interest payments each and every month, 347 or whatever it is. And then at the end of the year, you say, I want another $40,000 of liquidity, but I got to pay off this other one. So how can I do that, but keep on doing this whole scheme? I mean, it's not a scheme, but this whole strategy. Well, you can use another loan to pay off the principal of your first loan, and then you continue to do the only monthly payments. So now you have a total of $80,000 that you pulled out, and you're still just paying the interest of $347 a month. So, again, on a yearly basis, that's just over $4,000, right? I'm trying to do some mental math here, but somewhere around there. Anyways, my point is that you can do that, I think, indefinitely. At least I haven't found anything that tells me otherwise yet. Again, consult your professional, not some derp like me on the internet, but yeah, it does seem that way, at least as of right now, to the best of my knowledge. So you can actually just perpetually roll that off and continue to live off that. Yes, you still need to make the interest payments. So like it's not like a literal cheat code. You don't get free money. Like you do need to pay it, but you don't necessarily need to pay that principal back if you continue to refinance it in that way that I just laid out. Okay. Refinance in perpetual roll example. All right, let's go over an example. Interest only rollover, pay accrued interest. So that would be about $41.60 a year, and renew $40,000 principal for another 12-month term. So that's with the same original principal. So that means you hold on to the original $40,000 that you pulled out. You just continue to make those interest payments. Again, maybe you refinanced it with a slightly lower interest rate as well. It could be quite useful, of course. But let's say we could have a strategic refinance. Again, in the example that during that year, Bitcoin value actually goes up 25%, meaning that your collateral's value is no longer $100,000, it's $125,000. So your current loan of $40,000 with a 40% LTV, that goes down, meaning that you can do what? You could borrow more cash. So you could borrow an extra $22,500 to restore your 50% LTV if you want. Option number 2 would be you go for a rate cut. You see the rates over here, at least this year, have gone down a little bit. Let's negotiate it and move over. Or option number 3, you de-risk, which is probably the wise thing to do. Keep the loan at $40,000, but enjoy a wider 32% LTV buffer, meaning that you have less of a liquidation risk. And again, watch out. You can run into compounding interest, rate hikes, these sort of things. These will increase liquidation risk. You will have liquidation risk, is what I'm trying to say. All right, moving on. Risk landmines and mitigation tactics. Okay, so here are the potential scenarios where you're going to run into an issue. Price volatility. We already know this one. This is the most intuitive one. Keep some extra. How do you deal with this? What's a tactic? Keep extra Bitcoins on standby so that you can post them as collateral if some sort of a black swan happens. If COVID happens again tomorrow and markets jump 50% off the cliff in a couple of days, well, you're gonna wish that you had something like that. That's how we can deal with that situation. Then there's also, of course, counterparty failure risk. So in these cases, this is where I really, really, really try to help you understand the value of choosing a custodian like Strike or Unchange that has no rehypothecation clause or anything like this. And then, of course, it could be regulatory shifts. Maybe the SEC or the CFTC decides, we're going to change, some rules around over here, and that's going to change, other things elsewhere. Or, it could be like an interest rate change, and it could be, they're just changing the rules that make this sort of strategy no longer tax advantaged, perhaps. So you need to also reference, the IRS, because they'll give you notifications on that. And then, of course, there's interest rate drift as well. You probably want to go with a fixed interest rate. Yes, variable can be smart in some scenarios, but in my opinion, it's better to have as many constants as possible when you're dealing with potential, liquidation risk to begin with, because that means that you have less points of failure. If you have a variable interest rate, then obviously if interest rates rise, then you have to account for that, and you're on contract for that. You have no choice. Moving on. Europors caveat. Again, Europors can do this as well. All jokes aside, the EU will treat loans as non-taxable and gains deferred as well. I do know that Germany, through my studies, has about a 1-year holding period rule, which resets if you use Bitcoin in the lending protocol. Collateral loans exempt after 2022 reform, and DAC 8 reporting coming in 2026 means that you should be expecting increased scrutiny on these things. So things will probably change, is what I'm trying to say, as the EU does what the EU does best, which is regulate shit. Anyways, Moving on. Keep your coin summary. All right, so now we come to the very end here. We'll wrap this one up. Again, master the LTV and margin calls. We understand that the greater our LTV, the greater risk of a margin call and liquidation we could potentially have if price of our collateral's asset goes down. Or many other things happen as well, as we went over. A lot of things can go wrong for us. Start small, test with just 0.1 Bitcoin first. Start whatever small to you. Start there, and then consider like subscribing for more ROI stacking tactics. Anyways, just posting some endnotes and resource here. You can read all of this stuff mainly on the IRS FAQ and on crypto loans. This was actually back in 2024, and everything else is just coming from the lenders for Bitcoins, websites and whatnot, as well as the EU crypto tax guide here too that we just went over. But yeah. Again, main thing here, you can take out a loan. It means that you don't have to sell your coins in order to get cash. You don't have a taxable event, at least for that, which can be up to 37% if you're in the US, and you're making a lot of money in a relatively short amount of time. And then you can theoretically, you can also do this practically as well, but you can perpetually roll this loan, meaning that you can just pay the interest again and again and again until you decide to actually pay off the principal. Or you could, like I said, go to another lender, get another loan to pay off the principal of the prior loan, and do the same thing with that lender. Just pay the interest, hold on to your cash liquidity, and then at the end of the year or whatever the term is, go find another lender, maybe go back to the first one, do the same thing. That is okay, at least to the extent of my knowledge as of this time. Maybe that changes in the future. I don't know. Anyways, are we on the last slide now? Yes, we are. This is the last slide. This is where our journey ends. Again, I'm planning on doing more content like this as I learn more things because one, it helps me understand it. And then two, I think that these are like genuinely cool ideas. In my opinion, the whole Bitcoin backed loans are probably the killer use case of Bitcoin, to be honest. Why is that? Well, what's the new meme with Bitcoin? It is pristine collateral. Why do you need pristine collateral? Well, you need pristine collateral to put it up against something. And generally, one of the big advantages of Bitcoin is that it generally goes up. And so if it generally goes up, then that loan to value will theoretically go down over time. Yes, we do see bear markets. Yes, it does go down. Don't treat this as a 100% thing. There are events that will introduce massive risk, but generally it goes up. So if you are managing your LTV well, you can pull out even more cash, you can roll it even more, you can do all sorts of amazing things, again, in a massively tax advantage way. And you get to hold on to your fucking coins. You don't actually have to sell your damn coins, which is the main value proposition of a strategy like this. And I'll end it on that note. As always, I want to wish everyone the best of best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully in the next one.